Hello everyone, my name is Haruna Wiso. I am a participant of the Policy Advocacy course by the Pan-African PGS Education and Research Initiative, and I am a member of Group 5, and we chose the topic, should there be restrictions on the use of genetic information in reproductive decision making, such as selecting for or against certain traits, and I worked with Andrea Otewande on this. In our introduction, advances in genetic testing has revolutionized reproductive healthcare, enabling the selection of traits and identification of genetic risk. And we can argue that because advances in genetic testing have actually figured out a lot of genetic risk to be prevented during birth and even after birth, and even in dealing with some infectious diseases. But however, this progress has raised critical ethical, social, and legal concerns. Our stance here is restrictions are essential to prevent discrimination, promote equity, and ensure responsible use of genetic information. In our opening statement, we stand at the intersection of profound scientific advancements and deep ethical reflection. The use of genetic information in reproductive decision-making offers remarkable possibilities, including reducing the risk of genetic disorders and empowering individuals with knowledge about their reproductive choices. But also, restrictions are not about limiting choices, but are intended to safeguarding human dignity, ensuring equality by making it accessible to all social classes, thereby protecting the vulnerable and the poor population from being exploited. Unrestricted use of these technologies open doors to a myriad of risks, such as potential of eugenics, societal inequalities, and the devaluation of lives deemed as imperfect. We affirm that regulations are vital to harness the benefits of genetic technologies while mitigating its risk. Our goal here is to strike a balance between the innovation and the fundamental ethical principles that underpin our shared humanity. Constructive argument. We'll be looking at the ethical imperatives in germline editing. Germline editing affects not just the individual but future generations, which is raising unique ethical dilemmas, because how can you get a sperm cell or an embryo to sign an informed consent? Another concept we'll be looking at is the concept of designer babies. Designer babies are children whose genetic characteristics have been artificially selected or altered. This concept raises ethical concerns about human enhancement versus treatment, because the whole essence of germline editing is supposed to be for treatment of diseases, not for human advancement. And with ethics, we can be able to restrict some of these things to that. Many bioethics agree that germline editing for reproductive purpose should be restricted until safety and ethical standards are adequately addressed. Ethical principles such as non-maleficence, which is avoiding harm, and justice support cautious regulations to prevent irreversible societal harm. And also, a unified international framework is crucial to ensure responsible use of preventive exploitation, protecting the integrity of humanity's genetic legacy. As of 2014, there were about 40 countries that discouraged or banned research on germline editing, including 15 nations in Western Europe, because of its ethical and safety concerns. And there are also an international effort led by the US, UK, and China in harmonizing regulations for the application of germline editing technologies. This effort was officially launched in December 2015 at the International Summit of Human Gene Editing in Washington, D.C. Still on constructive arguments, in these slides we'll be looking at 3 points here. First, we'll start about the uncertainty of future developments. Genetic technologies is evolving really fast, which causes uncertainty about the depth of information yet to be applied. This can cause difficulty in providing appropriate ethical guidelines, because if you don't know the depth of the application, it will be very hard to provide ethical guidelines. Thus, genomic testing projects should be restricted to known and ethically acceptable guidelines. Another point we'll be looking at is safety and unintended consequences. In germline editing, there's what we call the off-target effect, which is when the edit is taking place in the wrong place, or in some cases, when some cells carry the edit and others do not carry the edit. Also, due to misinterpretation of data, safety is a primary concern here. And again, the high stakes of germline editing, where mistakes are passed to offsprings, has also necessitated ethical regulation. Another point we'll be looking at is justice and equity concerns, because without regulations, only the rich will have access to genomics enhancements, which will widen the social gaps that will lead only the wealthy family to be creating genetically superior offsprings, which will bring about a lot of inequality concerns. Access to genetics enhancement may not be equitable, leading to societal stratification based on genetic traits. On our last slide on constructive arguments, we'll be looking at 2 points. First, we'll be looking at the psychological and societal impact on children. Children may struggle for so many reasons. First, like their identity. They will start to question their worth based on the selected traits, and also there will be a pressure to meet the genetic expectation of the selected traits, which might affect their mental health and family dynamics. Another point we'll be looking at is the slippery slope of eugenics. Without ethics, trait selections lead to prioritization of aesthetics and social preferences over medical needs, shifting the health-focused genetic intervention to superficial enhancement. Normalizing genetic selection of non-medical traits could lead to a widespread acceptance of eugenics-like practice. Without ethics, genetic editing traits will be acceptable, and it will be very difficult to put a restriction to such situations. In our closing statement, the use of genetic information in reproductive decision making carries risks that extend beyond just the individual user, affecting innocent future generations. Until safety and ethical considerations are fully addressed, we must adopt a precautionary approach. And without regulation, these powerful technologies risk becoming tools that deepen societal inequalities and accessible only to the privileged. Regulating genetic information in reproductive decision making is not just a choice, but a necessity that upholds human dignity, fairness, and safety.